I think probably the biggest thing that we learned today is just how much we still have to learn. Uh, the brain is the most complex organ in the body, and so certainly it's not a surprise that concussions are complex. The exciting thing is we are asking the right questions, and I think we saw that today, and we'll continue to see that tomorrow at the Concussion Summit. We're on a good path where we're investigating, finding these answers that we don't have yet. But it's great to see the collaboration across campus as we're all working together to try to ultimately promote the overall health and safety and welfare of our athletes.
One thing I was impressed today about was just the collaboration between the neuropsychology, the engineers, the clinical physicians, and all the team effort to try to figure out how to best deal with concussions and prevent concussions, and also how do we get those athletes and people back to playing and get them back to school to learn.
I think it's the same reason why all three of us are up here today. We're wearing our school colors, but we don't care about our school colors when it comes to taking care of concussions. I think the questions that we found out the most is the more we learn about concussions, the more we really realize we don't know about concussions, and I think that's the hardest. But on the converse of that is the fact that we are getting better at taking care of concussions, and especially improving the quality of care and making sure that these children are taken care of properly and are returned to their sport safely or returned to their school with adequate help. I think that's what we're seeing the tremendous strides in.
The most effective strategies we can employ to best care for these athletes once they get concussed is to do the lion's share of the work before that concussive injury happens. And what I'm speaking to specifically there involves baseline testing. And Dr. Joy, our keynote speaker, touched on this today, looking at the reliability, the accuracy, the utility of different baseline tests, because it is important. It's necessary. It's vital to have information that precedes the actual date of injury, so that when we do assess their balance, when we do assess their cognitive function, we can go and look back at how they performed on those same tests when they were asymptomatic.
I take care of concussions the same way as I did 30 years ago when I first started doing that. However, on top of that, what we're seeing is a spread of knowledge to people who haven't taken care of concussions the right way or knew how to take care of concussions. So I always say that we're seeing a rise in concussions in the last 5 years, and I'm glad about that. And the reason I say that is because that means we're recognizing it more. Absolutely. So people are understanding what concussions are and what causes them and how to take care of them. So it's going out to not only other physicians and letting them know how to take care of concussions, but to coaches and parents and even the athletes themselves to recognize concussion, recognize the symptoms. So we're treating them earlier. We're not letting them go back into play when they still have symptoms and all of these things. So that's all been the biggest change that I've seen lately.
More about the knowledge to the parents, to the coaches, to the athlete, and once they figure out that, okay, it's okay to say I have a headache after I get hit. It's not just you got your bell rung. Maybe you need to go talk to someone about why you have a headache, and not just the athletes themselves, their teammates.
I think there's a lot of interesting research going on, especially here at UAB, with visual tracking and some of these other things to use as a way to try to determine whether that child is ready to return to play. I thought that was cutting edge there, so to me that was the thing. We didn't even talk about that 5-10 years ago. So looking at some of these and using these resources to determine whether kids are ready to go back to play, I think it's really exciting.
Some of the creative ways that are being explored to monitor brain function as it occurs on the field or on the court. We talk about the eye being a proxy into the brain, and so one of our researchers presented today some future direction where perhaps a device could be placed in the soft pocket of the eye and measure some of that activity that's happening during brain impacts.
The collaboration again, that's what I learned also, just how everybody's collaborating to help diagnose concussion, prevent concussion, and treat concussions. The researcher looking at how to best detect concussions while it's actually happening. we don't truly have a way to detect concussions now on the field. It's more so diagnosis after it happens. So if we can come up with that type of technology, I think it would help. Also, the current research going on with the helmets, I think that's worthwhile. I think we have a long way to go before we develop a helmet that's going to prevent a concussion. But just a collaboration in general between neuropsych and engineering and radiology is impressive.
Because concussions are a diagnosis that we're not actually evaluating the injury itself right now. We're evaluating the effects of the injury. And so I think if we could ever get to a point to where we can actually assess what's happening at the brain or in the brain in real time, then that's going to launch us forward in terms of our understanding and ultimately our treatment.